Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're working with some really fascinating source material, specifically a study guide from the UNFIJ in Jesus team.
And we are focusing on one very singular, very dramatic text.
Psalm 50. This one it's just different.
It is. It really stands apart. Most Psalms you open up and you're expecting a lament or maybe a song of praise. But this one, it just drops you right into the middle of a high-stakes legal drama.
A divine courtroom, that's what it's often called. And God himself is the judge.
Exactly. It's not a gentle prayer meeting. It's a formal public hearing.
And the really shocking part, the part that probably stunned its first audience, is who's on trial. It's not the usual enemies, the Assyrians or Babylonians.
No, not at all. The accused are God's own people.
The people of Israel. The believers, the ones with the covenant, the ones who are, doing all the religious things. God is judging his own.
And that's the critical setup for the whole chapter. This is a reckoning. It's designed to expose what is, I think, the ultimate failure of religion.
Which is?
Replacing genuine internal devotion with empty external ritual. They had basically turned a relationship into a transaction.
So our mission today, really using the analysis from the You Need Faith in Jesus team materials as our guide, is to unpack this entire case file. We want to understand the judge's charges, get to the bottom of why he rejects this kind of religious performance, and figure out what he actually wants from us.
What he truly demands from a heart that's devoted to him. It's about moving beyond, the shell of ritual to the core of integrity and real dependence.
Okay, let's jump right in. The scene is just epic. The whole world is called to attention in verse 1. The trial opens with this overwhelming statement of the judge's identity. Why start with this triple naming of God? What's the significance?
Well, that opening line is maybe one of the most forceful declarations of authority in the entire book of Psalms. The text says, and this is Psalm 50, verse 1 from the King James Version, "The mighty God, even the Lord, hath spoken, and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the going down thereof."
So the mighty God, even the Lord.
Right. And in the original Hebrew, you're getting three distinct, powerful titles for God. You have El, Elohim, and Yahweh, or Lord.
So it's not just one aspect of God speaking. It's like every dimension of his sovereignty is being brought to bear on this moment.
Precisely. El means the mighty one. It's about his sheer strength, his irresistible power. He has the authority to pass a sentence and, make it stick.
Okay, so that's the power.
Then you have Elohim. That's the title for God as the creator, the ultimate deity who set up the entire cosmic order. So his judgment isn't based on some local rule book. It's founded on the very laws of the universe.
And then Yahweh, or Lord, that's the one that always feels more personal.
It is. Yahweh is his personal covenant-keeping name. So by using all three, the mighty one, the creator, and the covenant partner, the psalmist makes it absolutely clear. The judge is acting with total power, total wisdom, and full covenant responsibility. This isn't some abstract court case. It's intensely personal. It's coming from the one who started the relationship in the first place.
Wow. And he doesn't just summon Israel. He calls the entire earth, from the rising of the sun unto the going down thereof. Why make this trial so public?
That universal audience is just vital to the whole point. This isn't some, private family argument behind closed doors. The judgment is staged for all of creation to see the absolute, non-negotiable standard of justice that God holds even his own chosen people to.
So it's a lesson for everyone.
It connects directly to that bigger prophetic idea you see in places like Malachi chapter 1, verse 11, which says, God's name will be great among the Gentiles from the rising of the sun to its setting. God is using this trial of his own people to set an example for all of humanity. His holiness is impartial.
And the You Need Faith in Jesus team materials really drive this point home. Our walk with God is never purely private, is it?
Never.
The integrity of our life, or the lack of it, is lived out on his public universal stage. It either brings him glory or it misrepresents him to a watching world.
And from the judge's authority, the scene shifts to his terrifying entrance. Verse 2 tells us where this light of judgment comes from. It says in Psalm 50, verse 2, "Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God hath shined."
That's so interesting. Zion's supposed to be the place of comfort, of worship, of peace. But here, the place of beauty becomes the source of a light that exposes every flaw.
It's a really powerful reversal, isn't it? The glory of God isn't just about salvation and comfort. It's also this penetrating, convicting holiness. When God's presence is ignored or, taken for granted, it shifts from being a blessing to being a consuming fire.
And verse 3 just doubles down on that feeling of dread. It says, "Our God shall come and shall not keep silence. A fire shall devour before him and shall be very tempestuous round about him."
Yeah, this is not a subtle whisper.
No, sounds like Mount Sinai all over again.
Exactly. That's the imagery it's supposed to evoke. The devouring fire, the violent storm. This is how the Bible consistently depicts a holy God confronting unholiness. It's meant to create this sense of deep, reverent awe.
The fire purifies, but first it has to burn away the impurities.
And the storm suggests a power that is just unshakable. It's chaos directed at anything that's not pure.
It really grounds you in the reality that the God of grace is also the God of absolute holiness. And that's something we can forget.
Right.
That New Testament line from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 29 is so important here. For our God is a consuming fire. It's a reminder to maintain that respectful fear, that awe, so we don't get too casual.
So the judge has arrived, the court is ready, and now the jury and the accused are called. Verse 4 sets up this cosmic jury. It says, "He shall call to the heavens from above and to the earth that he may judge his people."
Heaven and earth, they aren't just watching, they're witnesses.
They're the jury. They are there to bear witness to the fact that God's verdict is just and right. There's no room for an appeal based on, unfairness.
And again, the accused are specifically his people, not the nations, but the ones in the covenant.
And that just underscores the seriousness of it all. They had a special relationship, and with that came special responsibilities. Their failure is so much bigger because they should have known better.
It's a pattern, isn't it? I'm thinking Deuteronomy.
It is. Moses sets this precedent in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 1, when he's warning Israel about their future. He says, "Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. The heavens and the earth hear the charge, and they will validate the justice of the final verdict."
And then verse 5 narrows it down even more. It says exactly who is being called forward. "Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice."
This is the central irony of the whole psalm. He calls them my saints, my set-apart ones, but they're identified by the very thing the psalm is about to critique, the physical act of sacrifice. Their external religious performance has become their whole identity, and that is the root of their spiritual problem.
And the final verse of this section, verse 6, just affirms the judge's perfect character. "And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for God is judge himself."
Selah.
That Selah, that pause, it's telling you to stop and think about this. God isn't just playing the part of a judge. He is the judge. His very nature is righteousness.
It removes any possibility of bias.
Exactly. The "You Need Faith in Jesus" team commentary really highlights this. It means there's a 0% chance of an unfair outcome. And that truth, ultimately gives believers confidence. It ties right into what Paul says in Romans chapter 3, verse 26, about God being both just and the justifier of him which believeth in Jesus.
So the court is convened, the authority is absolute, the righteousness is perfect, the stage is set.
And now God delivers the first charge. And he starts in verse 7 with this really personal, almost sad address.
It is poignant, isn't it? It says, "Hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God." See, he reminds them, I am thy God. I'm the covenant partner you completely misunderstood. This isn't a distant CEO giving a bad performance review. This is a loving father expressing profound disappointment.
And the charge itself is a complete curveball. You're expecting him to say, "You didn't sacrifice enough animals, you missed a festival."
Right. Your performance was lacking.
Instead, verse 8 says the complete opposite. "I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or thy burnt offerings, to have been continually before me."
And that's the twist. The people were so diligent, they were checking all the boxes. Their offerings were continually before him. They were following the letter of the law perfectly.
So the problem isn't their activity.
No, it's their attitude.
The attitude that they were somehow doing God a favor, that they were feeling a need he had.
A transactional mindset. They believed that their actions, their sacrifices, were supplying something God lacked, which in turn put him under some kind of obligation to bless them or protect them.
And this is what Psalm 50 comes to demolish.
It's the core spiritual disease, what you could call the myth of human supply. The people had just forgotten God's radical, total self-sufficiency. They were bringing him a goat like he was some local, hungry, pagan idol whose survival depended on their generosity.
It sounds so absurd when you put it like that.
That is absurd. And God just dismantles that self-serving worldview with this incredible inventory of his own possessions. He starts in verse 10.
For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills.
And we have to understand what 1,000 hills means here. In ancient Hebrew, 1,000 often just meant innumerable or infinite.
So he's not just claiming a specific mountain range.
No. He's claiming total ownership of everything, everywhere. All the livestock they're bringing to the altar, it was already his. It's a powerful rhetorical smackdown.
It's like me trying to gift a billionaire a dollar bill and thinking I'm really helping him out. The scale of the absurdity is just immense.
That's a perfect analogy. The human ego, when it gets wrapped up in religious performance, can so quickly start to think we're indispensable. But God continues the inventory in verse 11. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine.
So whether it's domesticated or wild, visible or hidden.
He knows it, and
Yeah.
he owns it. They were literally bringing him his own property back to him. It's redundant, and frankly, if it's offered with the wrong motive, it's insulting.
And then comes what might be the most powerful statement of divine independence in the whole Bible. Verse 12.
It's a profound theological anchor. It says, if I were hungry, I would not tell thee. For the world is mine, and the fullness thereof.
Wow.
I mean, just think about that. If the infinite, eternal creator of everything actually had a need, would he really turn to the frail, temporary resources of human beings?
Of course not.
No, he lacks nothing. He owns the universe in all its abundance, the fullness thereof. Their mistake was confusing God's gracious invitation to worship with an urgent request for supplies.
And the whole section wraps up by just exposing the foolishness of it all with that unforgettable question in verse 13.
Will I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of goats?
It forces them and us to confront how ridiculous the thought process is.
They were basically treating God like a hungry man, an anthropomorphic idol. God is revealing that the physical act, when it's totally disconnected from a right understanding of who he is worse than meaningless. It's a mockery.
And this idea is so central. It echoes all the way into the New Testament.
It does.
I'm thinking of Paul in Athens speaking to the philosophers in Acts chapter 17, verse 25. He says, God is not worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things.
It's the exact same principle. We have to abandon this transactional mindset that says, I do X, therefore God owes me Y.
And the You Need Faith in Jesus Team Study Guide has these incredibly clear, practical steps to help us dismantle this transactional trap in our own lives.
They're really good.
The first one is just fundamental. Stop treating worship as a transaction. If we think our giving or our serving or our church attendance puts God in our debt, we're stuck in that same pre-Psalm 50 mindset.
Right. We participate because we're invited, not because we're needed. There's a huge difference.
That leads right into the second step.
Yeah.
Examine your motivation for giving or serving. And we have to be brutally honest here. Is it flowing from genuine love, from gratitude that's just overflowing? Or is it coming from guilt or obligation, or what I sometimes call spiritual insurance, putting a deposit in the cosmic bank, just in case things go bad?
If the motivation is wrong, the act is rejected. Simple as that.
And the third step gets to our security. Identify sources of false confidence. Where are we placing our trust?
We have to locate the real foundation of our spiritual security. If we find ourselves feeling good about our relationship with God because of our religious scorecard, our perfect attendance, or generous tithing, rather than resting only on God's character and his grace, then we have completely missed the point of Psalm 50.
God looks right past the checklist to the heart.
Always.
So charge one is closed. Stop trying to supply the Creator. Now, what does he actually want instead?
Right. Having just demolished the whole facade of external ritual, God pivots in verses 14 and 15. He's going to define what true, acceptable worship actually looks like. This is the positive command.
And who? He introduces this alternative offering. He replaces the animal with an attitude. Verse 14. Offer unto God thanksgiving and pay thy vows unto the Most High.
The focus shifts immediately to the inside, to the internal state. The real sacrifice isn't animal fat, it's thanksgiving.
A grateful heart.
A grateful heart. A life that is just characterized by continual praise, flowing from a recognition that God is sovereign and good no matter what our circumstances look like. It's the acknowledgement that everything we have is already his anyway.
And right alongside thanksgiving is this demand for integrity.
Yeah.
Pay thy vows. So this is translating that internal gratitude into actual external ethical behavior. God wants us to be faithful, to follow through on the commitments we make to him. This is where the rubber meets the road.
And we should probably spend a second on what vows means here. In the Old Testament, a vow could be a promise of a specific sacrifice or a pledge of service.
Or something you promised in a crisis.
Exactly. God, if you get me out of this mess, I will dedicate my life to X. That's a vow. And what Psalm 50 is saying is that breaking that commitment, being casual with your words to the Almighty, is a much bigger offense than forgetting to sacrifice a lamb.
That applies so directly to us today. Our modern vows might be the resolutions we make at the end of a powerful sermon.
Or a pledge of deeper devotion when we're going through a hard time.
A commitment to a moral standard. If we make that promise to God and then just let it slide when the pressure's off, we're failing to pay our vows. Integrity, just doing what you said you would do, is a profound form of worship.
And then the psalm shows us the actual mechanism for deepening this relationship. It's a relationship of total dependence, and it's laid out perfectly in verse 15.
And call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me.
That verse lays out a complete life-sustaining cycle, doesn't it? It's the proper order of things.
It is. It starts with God inviting us to depend on him. Call upon me in the day of trouble.
Meaning he expects to be our first resort, not our last hope.
Then there's the promise of rescue. I will deliver thee. But, and this is the key part, the delivery isn't the final goal.
No, it's the means to the real purpose, which is, and thou shalt glorify me.
So God rescues us so that we can fulfill the first part of true worship offering, praise, and thanksgiving. Our deliverance becomes a testimony to the world that he is a God who saves.
It's a beautiful, self-perpetuating system built on trust and gratitude. And this whole idea of calling on him in trouble but doing it with thanksgiving is exactly what the New Testament reinforces.
Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. It tells us to make all our requests known to God, but with a specific condition.
With thanksgiving.
Right. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Thanksgiving has to come before and during the request because it affirms his sovereignty even when we're anxious.
And again, the You Need Faith in Jesus team materials just synthesize this into 3 really practical, actionable steps. First, refocus on gratitude.
This is an active choice. It's a discipline, making it a daily practice to consciously turn our worries and complaints into specific expressions of praise.
Second, fulfill commitments. This is the integrity check.
You have to regularly review the promises you've made to God, the resolutions, the pledges, and actively work to pay them. If we're sloppy with our word to God, we can't really claim to be worshiping him sincerely.
And the third step is about how we handle crisis. Default to dependence.
When trouble hits, our immediate first action should be to call on God. We have to trust that the purpose of his deliverance isn't just about our comfort. It's about his glory. And our response has to be renewed praise.
This radical dependence is the complete opposite of that self-sufficient transactional worshiper we saw earlier.
Okay, so God desires a heart of gratitude and a life of faithfulness, but that only addresses one group of people in the courtroom.
Right. Now we move on to the second charge, which is aimed at the hypocrites. The ones performing the rituals, but failing morally.
This is a fascinating transition. The first group just, they misunderstood the theology. But this next group, starting in verse 16, they knew the theology perfectly well. They just deliberately ignored it. This is the charge of hypocrisy.
And it is a much, much more severe indictment. God speaks directly to the wicked, the ones who are using their faith like a mask. Psalm 50, verse 16. But unto the wicked God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth?
He's basically saying, you've lost the right to speak my name.
That's it, exactly. It's a crisis of authenticity. These people can quote the Bible, they know the law, they declare my statutes, and they claim all the benefits of the covenant. But God is asking, why are these sacred words in your mouth when your life is a complete contradiction?
And their real spiritual state is laid bare in the next verse, verse 17. It contrasts their words with their will.
Seeing thou hatest instruction, and castest my words behind thee.
So they can speak the law, but they hate instruction. They can't stand being corrected.
They despise godly counsel, and they actively cast his words behind them. It's a picture of deliberately turning your back on the commands you publicly claim to follow. It's willful spiritual blindness.
And to make the case absolutely undeniable, God brings specific evidence. These aren't just abstract failures, they're tangible moral compromises.
He hits them on integrity and morality. Verse 18 points out their collusion with criminals and their participation in sexual sin. When thou sawest a thief, then thou consentedst with him, and hast been partaker with adulterers.
So they weren't just, passively neglecting the law. They were actively compromising their standards and joining in with sin.
All while claiming to be God's people. It's staggering.
And their hypocrisy is also exposed by how they use their words. The same mouth that declares statutes is also used for malice.
Yes, look at verse 19. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. And then it gets even more personal, verse 20. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son.
That's devastating. They were destroying their own community, their own families, with slander and gossip, all while keeping up this public front of piety.
The person they praised God with on the Sabbath was the person they tore down with their words on the next day.
And this whole damning list leads to what I think is the most critical line in the entire section. The fatal miscalculation in verse 21. This is the root of the whole error.
It is. This verse reveals why the hypocrite thought they could get away with it all. Let's read it slowly. Psalm 50, verse 21. These things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself. But I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes.
Wow. They mistook God's patience for God's approval.
Or even his complicity. They looked at their own unpunished sin, their private compromises, their deceitful speech, and they drew a terrible conclusion.
That God must be just like them.
That God must be just as passive, just as unconcerned, just as morally flexible as they were. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself. They literally remade the holy, righteous God in their own corrupt image. It's the ultimate offense.
But the silence is over.
It's ending. God says, I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. He's going to lay out their sins like evidence in court, and it will be undeniable.
This just reinforces that theological point from 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. God's patience, his long-suffering, is not indifference. It's an opportunity for us to repent. It's not a green light to keep sinning.
It's a grace period, not a sign of approval.
And the whole trial section culminates in verse 22, which identifies the foundational sickness that's driving both the empty ritual and the active hypocrisy.
This is the root sin of it all.
Psalm 50, verse 22. Now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. The core issue is forgetting God.
And we have to be clear what forgetting God means here. It's not an intellectual problem. They haven't forgotten he exists. They're declaring his statutes.
It's what we might call practical atheism.
That's the perfect term for it. It's living your Monday through Saturday life as if God's authority, his presence, and his coming judgment have absolutely no bearing on your daily choices. You say you believe in God, but your actions prove you live as if he isn't there or isn't watching.
That willful dismissal is the foundation for every other moral failure.
And that warning, lest I tear you in pieces, is so stark. The You Need Faith in Jesus team study materials are careful to point out this is likely about the immediate, severe consequences in this life.
Not necessarily about losing one's salvation.
Right. It's about the loss of blessing, the destruction of relationships, the public exposure of hypocrisy. It's about facing the fearful reality of the living God here and now.
It just affirms the gravity of it all. Like Hebrews chapter 10, verse 31 warns, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. God's people have a greater responsibility, and their rebellion carries a profound risk.
And the You Need Faith in Jesus team guidance on how to combat this hypocrisy is so crucial. The first step is active remembrance.
We have to intentionally, consciously cultivate an awareness of God's presence in every decision we make. We have to fight that default setting of practical atheism and constantly acknowledge God is here. He is watching. He cares about this choice.
Second, we need the exact opposite of the hypocrite's heart. We must welcome reproof. The hypocrite hates instruction. A genuine believer has to actively seek and welcome correction from Scripture, from wise counsel, from the hard things God allows in our lives to refine us.
If we get defensive every time we're corrected, we might be confirming the charge of hypocrisy in our own hearts.
And the third step is all about integrity, self-examination. We have to honestly, regularly compare our public declaration of faith with our private actions.
The statutes we speak versus the words we cast behind our backs.
Exactly. Real integrity demands that there is no gap between our outward profession and our internal daily life.
So the trial is over. The charges have been laid out, misunderstanding God and practical atheism. But mercifully, the psalm doesn't end with condemnation. It ends with this beautiful final invitation in verse 23.
It's the perfect summary of true religion. It synthesizes the response to both charges, balancing that internal heart attitude with external behavior. This is Psalm 50, verse 23. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright will I show the salvation of God.
Let's break that down. The first half seems to address charge 1, about misunderstanding worship. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me.
And that is the ultimate goal. True worship flows from a heart that is just focused on sincere thanksgiving, not on transactional giving. This heartfelt recognition of who God is and what he's done is the only thing that truly glorifies him, because it acknowledges he is the source and owner of everything.
And then the second half is the answer to charge 2, the hypocrisy. It demands a specific kind of life, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright.
The King James word conversation is key. It doesn't just mean talking, it means your whole conduct, your manner of living. So to order his conversation aright means to establish an upright, obedient, disciplined way of life.
It's the opposite of casting God's words behind you.
Exactly. It's about making sure your behavior matches your covenant claim. True praise has to be connected to sincere, visible obedience.
And when those two things come together, the heartfelt praise and the ordered life, then God gives this incredible promise.
Will I show the salvation of God?
And that promise feels so multi-layered. It's not just about, being saved once.
No, it's about the continuous daily experience of his deliverance, his protection, his provision. It's the tangible reality of his presence in our lives. The life of integrity and praise is the life that continuously experiences God's saving power.
Which circles right back to the purpose of it all. We are saved, and we are delivered day by day so that our lives can become a testimony to his goodness. It's like 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 says, we are called out of darkness so that we can show forth the praises of him who has called you.
The salvation is shown to us so we can show his praises to the world.
And the You Need Faith in Jesus team's final takeaways really provide the blueprint for living this out. First, unite heart and hand.
We have to be resolved to connect our internal praise, our thanksgiving, with our external behavior. Our spirituality cannot be isolated from our ethics. Our worship on Sunday can't be divorced from our integrity on Monday.
And the second step is to expect deliverance. We should live in the expectation that as we intentionally try to align our lives with God's truth, as we seek to be genuinely grateful and consistently obedient, we will experience the fullness of his salvation day by day.
And that experience becomes a living proof that this kind of integrated faith is real.
Psalm 50 is just a timeless diagnosis, isn't it? It moves us so far beyond worrying about the quantity of our religious activities and forces us to look at the quality of our devotion.
The divine courtroom requires an honest heart, a heart defined by thankfulness and practical, lived-out obedience.
Absolutely. This whole look at Psalm 50, really guided by the material from the You Need Faith in Jesus team, has given us such a clear picture of what God values. It's sincerity over spectacle. It's integrity over empty ritual.
The ultimate offering is a life wholly devoted, a heart of praise that is matched by a hand of obedience.
And as we close out, we want to leave you with a final thought to reflect on. And it comes from that command in Psalm 50, verse 14, to pay thy vows.
Think back to a time of deep trouble in your life, a sickness, a financial crisis, a personal struggle. In that moment of desperation, you likely made a commitment to God in exchange for his help.
So the question is this. What is the one vow or commitment you made to God when you were desperate that you still need to pay?
Transforming that old historical obligation into an act of true, present-day, heartfelt worship, that's the challenge of Psalm 50. Think about that commitment and maybe act on it today.